Hi, this is Dr. Perry Carpenter from Easy Continuing Education, and I'm coming to you today to briefly share with you a new tool that we've provided and added to our QME Success line of products. And what I want to share with you today is extracted from a larger product entitled the Compendium of Permanent Impairments. And today I want to share with you the Compendium of Cervical Spine Impairments product. And in order to introduce this product to you, let me ask you, in the course of preparing your QME evaluations, when it comes time to write your permanent impairment argument for the examinee, have you ever found yourself deliberating and agonizing and ruminating and pondering and pulling your hair out, which is what happened to me? When it comes time to prepare your permanent impairment argument, of course you have. Of course you have. Qualified medical evaluators across the board of all specialties in all parts of the state tell me that writing the permanent impairment section of their report is one of the most difficult and mentally intensive sections of the report that there is. In addition to the apportionment section of the report, probably the permanent impairment section of the report is the most difficult, and it's the section of the report that's extremely critical that we as qualified medical evaluators get right. Well, I had a brainstorm recently when I realized that contained within the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and even thousands of files of examinees' files that I had in my possession resided a treasure trove of permanent impairment arguments, already prepared, already organized, already completed. In other words, the agony had already been spent in preparing these hundreds and hundreds of permanent impairment arguments. So I sat down one day with the help of an assistant, and we assembled and extracted every single permanent impairment argument from every single evaluation dating back to the initiation of the 2005 AMA guides and the new permanent disability rating schedule under the AMA guides. So we went back in every single report and we extracted from the report the permanent impairment arguments contained within those reports, and we created a compendium of permanent impairments. And the purpose of having a compendium of permanent impairments is so that the permanent impairment arguments could be organized by body region and could be organized from lowest impairment rating, even 0% impairment rating, to highest impairment rating. And in some sections of the body, the permanent impairments are arranged according to the method used in determining the permanent impairment, according to the chart or table or chapter used in determining the permanent impairment. In other words, we spent extensive time organizing the permanent impairment ratings in an organized and easily accessible fashion. So with regards to the product I'm sharing with you today, which is the Compendium of Cervical Spine Impairments, we took the cervical spine impairments contained within hundreds and hundreds of reports, and we organized them by, number one, the DRE method. In other words, those permanent impairment reports, permanent impairment arguments that were argued through the use of the DRE methods, we organized those. We organized those permanent impairment ratings that were assessed through the range of motion method. And then we had an extra category of permanent impairment arguments that were arranged through the alternative impairment rating method, somehow within the four corners of the AMA guides under Alvarez and Guzman. So let me just show you what is contained within each of these organized sections of the cervical spine compendium of impairments, and then I'll show you the product, and I'll show you how you can use the product to save yourself hours and hours and hours and many, many hair follicles, if only over the next 12 months. Okay? So in the DRE section of cervical spine impairments, we have 6 examples of examinees who qualified for the DRE Category 1 The DRE Category 1 in these particular examples ranged from 0% whole person impairment to as high as 2% whole person impairment in those cases where the 2% whole person impairment was provided as a nominal impairment, simply to give some examinee some consideration for the injury that they suffered and for any subjective complaints that linger at the time of the permanent and stationary evaluation. We have 25 examples of examinees who were rated under the DRE2 cervical spine method, and the impairment ratings amongst these 25 examinees range from 3 to 8% whole person impairment. We have 4 DRE3 arguments wherein the impairment ratings range between 15 and 18% whole person impairment. And then we have a DRE Category 4, one example. Remember, DRE Category 4 refers to examinees who have both radiculopathy and loss of motion segment integrity, so this is a rare impairment, but we have one example for you, and this is an example where the examinee qualifies for 28% whole person impairment, and these are over almost 40 cases that are rated under the DRE method of rating cervical spine impairments. And then under the range of motion method, we have 10 examples wherein the examinee's cervical spine impairments rate anywhere from a low of 4% whole person impairment to as much as 61% whole person impairment. So you can see that range of motion impairments have the potential to exceed the impairment ratings provided for by the DRE category. And this section of the product, wherein we review 10 examples of range of motion permanent impairment arguments, is extremely valuable, if only for the reason that many qualified medical evaluators, when providing permanent impairment rating opinions, many qualified medical evaluators do not rely upon the range of motion method. They simply rely upon the DRE method of determining permanent impairment, probably because providing a permanent impairment rating under the range of motion method is much more difficult, is much more time consuming, and involves considerably more medical decision making, mental effort. And for that reason, many qualified medical evaluators default to the DRE method of rating permanent impairment. And if you have done any range of motion method impairment ratings recently or at all, you'll recall that the range of motion method involves three components. There's three essential components that combine to provide a final permanent impairment rating for the examinee's cervical spine condition. So those three components are, number one, a specific spine diagnosis, specific spine disorder diagnosis. That's number one. Number two is the cumulative impairments provided for by loss of range of motion of the examinee in 6 cervical spine ranges of motion. So that's component number 2, is abnormal motion. And the examinee qualifies for permanent impairment for each range of motion for which there are losses. So that's number 2. And then component number 3 of the range of motion method of providing for permanent impairment has to do with neurologic deficits, either sensory deficits or pain, or motor deficits. And in these 10 examples, we provide thorough discussions of each of those 3 contributors to the final permanent impairment. And each of those 3 arguments times 10 examples will give you a master's degree education in how to use the range of motion method. And then finally, we provide for you 10 examples of permanent impairment ratings provided for under Alvarez-Guzman. In other words, these are alternative impairment ratings found within the 4 corners of the AMA guides that are determined to be the most accurate description of the examinee's permanent impairment rating. And this is unbelievable. This is something you will not find anywhere. There is no such product like this on the market. We have 10 examples where the examinee's cervical spine permanent impairment rating under the alternative impairment rating ranges from 19% whole person impairment all the way to as high as 100% total disability for the cervical spine component of the examinee's permanent impairment rating. And I contend that you can find no collection of 10 alternative permanent impairment ratings on any body parts in any one location. And here, in this Compendium of Cervical Spine Impairments, we've collected 10 examples from actual examinees. These are not made up or hallucinated examinees. These are from actual live examinees, and these are the actual arguments contained within these examinees' final QME reports. So they're all assembled in one place, and the wheel has already been invented. You don't have to agonize any longer over your permanent impairment arguments. You simply can select a permanent impairment rating from the 40 DRE examples, from the 10 range of motion examples, or from the 10 alternative impairment rating examples, and find out which of those permanent impairment ratings most closely describe your examinee, and then simply cut and paste the argument from the compendium into your report. So let me show you now what this product looks like and how you would use it in preparing your permanent impairment arguments. Okay, so here we have up on our computer screen the new Compendium of Permanent Impairments, and this is the portion of the compendium that relates to the cervical spine. So it has a brief introduction, it has some instructions as to how to use the compendium, and it has a table of contents here where the permanent impairments are arranged and sequenced by the DRE method, the range of motion method, and alternative ratings under Alvarez and Guzman. So the way that you use this is you open up the navigation pane, which is under the View tab in your Microsoft Word ribbon, and you open up the navigation pane over here on your left sidebar. So this is the navigation pane that can take you through the document, the Compendium of Impairments. So here we have cervical spine impairments. They're arranged by DRE methods, by range of motion method, and by alternative impairment ratings under Alvarez and Guzman. And each one of these categories can be collapsed or expanded. So as you open up the DRE methods, we see that there's several impairment, well, we have categories of DRE category 1, Category 1 for nominal impairment, Category 2 for 3 to 8%, Category 3, Category 4, etc. Under the range of motion method, we have many permanent impairment arguments here, ranging from 4% whole person impairment all the way to 61% whole person impairment. And then we have alternative impairment ratings under Alvarez and Guzman, and they rate as high as 100% disability as an alternative impairment rating. So when you have your examinee, you simply decide on which method that you're going to use to evaluate your examinee, and you can simply click through the examples, such as the 4% range of motion method example, and here we go through each of the 3 components of the range of motion method: the specific spine disorders, the abnormal motion, neurologic deficits, total whole person impairment, and you simply scroll through the examples to determine which argument most closely resembles your examinee's particular situation, and then you simply cut, or I should say copy this argument to your clipboard, and in your own document you can simply paste it into your clipboard, and then you can change the name. You can change the name of the examinee as follows by using the replace function in Microsoft Word. To change the name to your particular examinee, hit Replace All, and you have the document customized for your particular examinee, and boom, you are done with providing for your permanent impairment rating under the range of motion method. So doctors, doesn't that simplify the writing of the permanent impairment section of your report? Of course it does. Now, as you know, the number of examinees in the workers' compensation system is almost infinite, with thousands and thousands of examinees coming into the system every week. Well, what you may not have realized is that the number of situations, circumstances, and scenarios that workers present to us in the qualified medical evaluation is not infinite. It's not infinite. In fact, it's quite finite. And similarly, the types of permanent impairment ratings that examinees are going to qualify for are similarly not infinite. It's a very finite, small, select group of permanent impairment rating arguments that are going to apply to 99% of all your examinees. So anguish and deliberate no more, because I've already done all the anguish and deliberating and pondering and agonizing over permanent impairment arguments for you. Now you can simply go to the Compendium of Permanent Impairments, select the cervical spine impairment that most closely matches your examinee's current condition, and simply cut and paste the permanent impairment argument from the compendium into your report. Now, the argument may require some tiny customization to be more specific to your particular examinee, but the heavy lifting and hard work of crafting the permanent impairment argument has already been done for you. So doctors, I hope you take advantage of this product. It will greatly simplify your QME evaluations from this day forward. And this is simply one of several products contained within the Compendium of Permanent Impairments. We also have permanent impairment arguments for the thoracic spine, for the lumbar spine, for the shoulder, for the upper extremity, for the lower extremity. We have the Compendium of Permanent Impairments is a complete document of hundreds and hundreds of pages. The cervical spine compendium is approximately 60 pages and contains, as I stated earlier, almost 40 examples of permanent impairment arguments from actual examinees. So doctors, I hope this helps you to systematize and streamline the production of your QME reports, and I'm certain that if you would purchase this product, the cost of this product will be realized for you within the time savings of your very first use of this product. And after that, the product will have paid for itself over and over and over again. And in addition to saving you time, these permanent impairment arguments have been crafted properly, correctly. They've been edited, they've been modified, they've been organized and formatted into beautiful formatting in Microsoft Word, so that when you cut and paste these into your QME report, they look beautiful as well. So doctors, I hope you'll avail yourselves of this product. It's just one more way that we're continuing to help you become a better qualified medical evaluator. So I want to thank you for taking the time to bear with me throughout this presentation. And for now, this is Dr. Perry Carpenter wishing you best of success in your career as a qualified medical evaluator.